Hello, how are you doing today?
Pretty good.
All right. For the recording, can you please state your name?
Ringo Chang,
And how old are you, Ringo?
19,
And what is today's date?
February 11th,
And we are
2019.
in Cal State Fulton. Time is 2:47. Okay. So, Ringo, how would you describe your ethnic background?
I would say I'm Chinese.
Okay. What kind of Chinese are you? Would you say, are you Cantonese?
I'm Cantonese, yeah.
Cantonese, okay.
Yeah.
Now, how is your ethnic background similar to or different from other ethnic backgrounds here in the U.S.?
I say most people here, let's say like they're Chinese, but then they're not from Hong Kong. But then my ancestors like actually from Hong Kong. I say there's a difference in language and stuff like that. And beside language, I think there was those like culture differences and stuff like that. And yeah, I think that's all the difference that we have.
Now, would you consider yourself more so American Cantonese, or do you identify yourself with really Cantonese from Hong Kong?
I would identify myself Cantonese from Hong Kong.
Okay. How are you personally similar or different from individuals in your ethnic community?
Personally different. I say most of the people here are not as fluent as I am in terms of Cantonese, speaking Cantonese language, and I was able to really obtain this language from my parents. I absorb all those like skills from them, so I speak a lot with them. So I say I'm more fluent and more native compared to others, other people in my community and stuff like that.
That's awesome. What, if anything, does it mean to you to be a person of this background, to be Cantonese?
I feel like it's really unique to me because especially if you know the situation in China, I think they just like a bunch of people just keep speaking Mandarin, and actually Cantonese is the most ancient language in the history of China. So I feel like that language is really unique and it's really hard to pick up if you're trying to learn it. So I feel like I have an advantage compared to other people.
Okay. How did you learn to identify yourself in this way? Did your parents tell you growing up that you are Cantonese, or did you just figure it out along the way growing up?
My parents told me that like we're Hong Kongese, like we try to like differentiate ourselves because we were colonized by Britain in Hong Kong, like back in the days and stuff like that. So there's sort of like cultural differences between China and Hong Kong. So my parents definitely influenced my perception in my identity and stuff like that.
So you and your parents consider yourselves
Hong Kongese.
different from the mainland Chinese?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, how does, with the history of Hong Kong, of like the British invading Hong Kong, how does that affect you and your family today? Is there still some resentment?
I feel like my mom actually appreciated what they did because it makes Hong Kong more international city and stuff like that. And because of that, growing up, everyone there has to learn the language English. So when she moves here, it's relatively easy for her to adapt all those like difficulties here. So because like the culture is really similar in US compared to what we learned in Hong Kong because of the Britain influences.
Okay. So to you, what do you think it means to others that you are, Hong Kongese or Cantonese?
I feel like I'm really proud to present my identity because firstly, there's like a mixture of culture. I think it's really, really interesting at first because most of the countries just like by themselves, but then Hong Kong has that unique cultural stuff like festivals, and we pretty much follow all the Western and the Chinese part, the Asia part. So we're a mixture and combination of all those culture, and I think it's really unique.
Do you think members of your ethnic community have power? And if so, in what areas?
Power. In terms of like in the U.S. or like in Hong Kong?
Anywhere in the world, like say an influence when it comes to food, culture, movies.
I feel like definitely movies a big factor. So, it's fun fact is like Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee. Like I know Bruce Lee is born here, but then his ancestors also like Hong Kongese sort of stuff like that. So I feel like they have a major power in movies in terms of like spreading the Chinese kung fu, all those like culture stuff. And then in terms of food, I feel like when you see a lot of Cantonese people move to one area, that area becomes more Cantonese food and stuff like that. So I feel like, let's say back in my area, 626, LA County, Rosemead area is like a bunch of Cantonese food. So
Right.
I feel like there's certain factors that Cantonese people still play in a sense that it would affect the culture of any countries, stuff like that.
Now, I really love dim sum. What is your take on Hong Kong spreading that kind of food and culture?
So fun fact about myself, my uncle actually works as a dim sum worker.
Yeah.
So he always gave me like a bunch of dim sum when he's off work. So I kind of don't like dim sum. But
You've had too much?
yeah, I have too much because I have to mix it with rice, and it's like sort of like a side food for me. So it's like
Okay.
I'm really not into dim sum anymore. Before I liked it, but I'm definitely glad that they brought that tradition into all around the world so that like people can taste and like appreciate the food that like people created.
All right. So now, how do you think individuals outside of your community would describe members of your community in a positive or maybe negative way?
I say there's a really stereotype about Cantonese people is that when they don't understand a language, they think that they're being really rude, like the tone. So like I think there's a stereotype on that, but then it's just like I feel like once again it's like the cultural differences because like Cantonese people tend to pronounce in a way that like is more aggressive, I would say. So it's like not necessarily means that they are arguing with people, but it's just like how they grew up with, the environment that they grew up with, and how, it's just a culture that makes it so different, I guess. Yeah.
Is there any positive things that, maybe other ethnic communities would describe about yours?
I feel like definitely hardworking, so that's a really positive attribution on the Asian community or like the Chinese community in general, because I feel like a lot of parents understand the struggle that being in poverty, so they understand that. So they would try to implement that knowledge into the next generation and hope that they will, enrich the knowledge and just pretty much work really hard. I feel like there's that's the positive connotation towards the Asian community group.
Have you personally or your family experienced any discrimination, negativity from other ethnic communities just because you are from Hong Kong or Cantonese?
I feel like not that I'm aware of, like not like directly, but yeah, I don't think I have encountered those type of stuff because once again I'm from Rosemead, so there are a bunch of like Cantonese people, all those diversity, Hispanics and Vietnamese people. So I feel like we are both like minorities. All of us are minorities. So I feel like there's a sort of like respect on our in our county because there's so many of us together and stuff like that. All
right. So, what if anything do these stereotypes or perceptions mean to you?
Stereotypes. I feel like, that's a really good question. I feel like most of the stereotype on Asian is like don't know how to drive and really good at math. So I feel like that. Let's say, well, I like math, so I'm not like the other like I'm actually the stereotype. But like, let's say my friends, right? So they don't really know math and stuff, like they're not really interested into that. So they have sort of like a perceptions like people were like, oh, why aren't you good at math? You're Asian. even though it's a joke, but it hurts because we, like, as an Asian community, because we're Asian, we feel as like we should be good at something.
Mm-hmm.
Once we're not, it means we're bad. Like, so every time when they hear the term like we should be good at something, but then they actually not, it just like affect them personally,
Right.
on a personal level.
If you could change anything about these perceptions or anything of your culture, what would you change and why?
Can you repeat the question again? Sorry.
Sorry, it's okay. If you could change anything about these perceptions, these stereotypes, or anything in your culture whatsoever, what would you change and why?
I say I would like to change the perception that like every Asian should be good at something,
Right.
or like math specifically, or like education. I feel like not because we're smart. I feel like it's a perception that like how parents educate us, and that can lead to us, because like Asian community always forces people to go to after school programs, stuff like that, to enrich your knowledge and stuff like that. It's like I feel like I want people to understand that we're not born be smart. We're just like hardworking, through hard work and dedication, which makes what we are today. Yeah.
Okay, that's very good. So who would you consider to be members of your family, and what is your family like?
Family. I feel like all of my family should be my family. So it's like my relatives, like my aunt, my uncle, my brothers, all those like cousins, all of them should be considered my family. I feel like because Asian community has a really, what's that word? They tend to work together. I forgot the word of that, but like they tend to work together, and I really appreciate when my families are always there for me, and we just like talk a bunch of stuff. I'm really close to my family, especially my aunt and my cousin, because we have gone through a lot of like personal issues and stuff like that. We just like share common goals, and we share burdens, happiness, and all stuff like that.
Now, as a fellow minority, would you consider other members of the minority your family?
Others of the minorities, I would say so, but most of the reality, most of the people don't like think other minorities. I feel like there's different teams. I would describe it. Let's say like there's like Chinese, Vietnamese, Filipinos, and all that stuff. I feel like they just like stand among their own group.
Right.
So they would just like segregate others and feel them as like enemies in a way. So it's like because we're different, and then personally I feel like we should unite it together, sort of like not to be segregated and separated, but to understand the struggle, because all the minorities share the same struggles, sort of. So I feel like I feel them as like sort of my family, because we all share the common struggle and stuff like that.
There's a saying that just because you're blood related, it doesn't mean that we're family. What does that mean to you?
I feel like blood related.
Like you don't have to be blood related to be family.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like I feel like I have a lot of friends here. I feel like I definitely like agree with that, sort of, because like when I talk to my friends, it's like talking to a family. Like not specifically just like Asian community, but all those friends that I have like here. When I talk to them about my obstacles and like what I've been through, if like the Asian community of my friends obviously would understand like the obstacles that I've been through, and just like give you advices and stuff like that. I feel like those are really valuable people in my lifetime, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. Of these members of your family, to you, who are the most significant and why?
I feel like my mom actually is the most significant in my life, because my mom actually like, there's like sexism sort of still exists, I would say, but then my mom actually like put it aside. Like I feel like she was the manager of a company. I feel like her status is so much higher than my dad, sort of. So like she took care of me like really well. She forced me to, not like force in a bad way, but in a good way, as a sense that to like participate more,
right,
to figure out my hobbies and figure out what I want to do in my future. So I sort of understand the concept ever since I was young. And my dad actually passed away like a few years ago because like cancer and stuff like that. So I really appreciate my mom, what my mom has done for the family, the time she has sacrificed, and the effort that she has spent on us, and us as in like my brother and I, and stuff like that. Yeah.
So what is a typical family gathering like? Can you describe one for me?
Typically family. So I would say we just, all of us just gather around in a really big table and we just start talking. And that's my typical family gathering, sort of, because like most of the time we see each other usually like just like once in a week, sort of. But ever since like my grandparents passed away, so we used to go to my grandparents' house and just have a family gathering. It's like, it's really cool. The children play by themselves, and just like the adults play their own games and stuff like that. So It's like, ever since my grandparents passed away, so we kind of like separated, but we still try to go to one's house and just like gather around and stuff like that. We pretty much like just talk about life and like and like play games together. So it's like, it's pretty cool.
That's good. So, if anything, what can be challenging about your family?
What can be challenging?
Like, are you pressured to succeed, to get good grades, to find a good job, or is there infighting in your family sometimes?
I feel like my mom definitely like tried to push me there in elementary school. So like we obviously have to go to after school program and stuff like that. But I understand the purpose behind that, because my mom actually like lives in poverty when she was young. So like she doesn't want the same thing happen to me again. So I understand what she has been doing for us in a sense. And then in terms of getting good grades, my mom is not like the stereotype Asian parents wants you to, just like get good grades or you're not going home and stuff like that.
Right.
Like my mom is more like lenient, do whatever you want, whatever you're interested in. That's why she's trying to develop my hobbies in the early stage of life. But then I have a really high standard on myself. So I want to be an accountant. I want to like give a comfortable life to my families and stuff like that. So I feel like we don't usually have like a family problems, because I understand the purpose behind her. But then obviously when I was young, I don't understand. I was complaining and stuff like that. But now I grew up, so obviously the perception is like different. And so, yeah, I don't think I have any problems with my family.
Are there any spoken or unspoken rules that your family abides by?
Spoken rule. Okay, so I feel like my family really emphasize the part of being politeness and gratefulness, because once again, they've been through a lot of struggles and stuff like that. So they really want you to be grateful of what you have right now, not complain what you don't have. Pretty much appreciate one thing and then just like forget about what you don't have, like cherish the moment and stuff like that. And then politeness, like call every single relative. So I remember I have to call, because I'm the youngest of my family, so I have to call all the way from my grandparents all the way to my younger cousin, or like just like a year older than me. There's a cousin a year older than me, all the way there. It's like, I would say like 30 members before I can eat. So I have to call all the names and let's eat. So it's like, that's the fun part, I guess. Like, but then I really start to pick up that tradition, whereas I should be grateful. My friend always calls me like, oh, you don't have to always say thank you, but then it's just sort of like subconsciously in my brain and like in my culture and stuff. Like I just behave in that way, sort of.
Would you say that your mom has the most power in your family right now?
Yes, definitely. Because my dad passed away, but even then, my mom actually made a lot of decisions. So yeah, my mom is the most powerful, like the household pretty much.
How about amongst her siblings?
Among my siblings.
No, among the siblings of your mom.
Oh, okay. I say it's still my uncle, which is her older brother.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I feel like there's still sexism exists in this world. So it's like, or in Hong Kong at least. So it's like, I feel like they still have more say compared to my mom, even though my mom is really talented and stuff like that.
So it's more so like just because you're a female, you don't have much say.
Sort of like that. Like they really like lenient, but still, I feel like they still have that sort of mentality.
Let me see. And so you could say that your mom definitely has the least power when it comes like to her direct family.
Not necessarily the least, but almost the least. Yeah.
Almost at least. Okay. So, what do you think are some common problems in your community experience? What do people do when they encounter these problems?
As in like problems?
Like what are the most common problems, like say in your ethnic backgrounds?
Okay. Most common problem. So can't really think of a common problem.
Like say, do you think that sexism towards females, would you say that that's a very common problem even today, or is it changing?
I feel like it's starting to emerge. Like it's definitely like evolving. It's like it's getting better towards a positive side.
Right.
Yeah, I really can't think of anything like towards. I feel like there is still discrimination in my community. That definitely like in terms of job opportunities, because I was in like a management class and you're just like talking about all this like inequality and like discrimination against Asian community. So I definitely feel like there's some sort of job opportunities like problems because of our race, and like I feel like also like gender inequality. And I think those two are the biggest like challenge our community have to face, I would say.
Now, when it comes to those problems, what did your mom do about it?
I say she just like proved people wrong, that like she is actually really, effective, or like just like really smart. So I feel like she just really proved them wrong by like getting a really high position job title and stuff like that. So
do you think she had to work twice as hard because of her gender compared to, say, if it was a male of the same education and position?
I don't think so, actually. It's like my mom actually, my mom actually got really lucky. So like she didn't graduate from like university, right? But she's still able to contain a manager position by herself. But I'm not too sure like if she has put more like effort. But knowing herself, or like just my mom, she definitely like would put more effort into that stuff. Yeah.
Now, being Cantonese, how might you personally help someone who was facing the same problem, like say sexism or discrimination? What advice would you give them?
I say try to like talk it out with people. I say like, cause like I understand it's really hard because it has been implemented into our culture in the United States. Let's say I feel like it's been there for so long because males value that as in like a threat to their like position, or just like power sort of, or status. And I know it's definitely like really difficult to overcome it, but I feel like one day the world will be evolving in a way that like everyone will be share that equality. It's really hard because like because I read an article about that because of my Asian American women study as well, like recently. So it's like I feel like people just doing that because they're unconscious of their action, and yeah, I feel like it's just like really hard to tell them like what exactly to do, because like this is the world. It's like people dying. Like it's like really hard to tell them what to do after that. So yeah, I'm not too sure about that.
Okay. Can you describe one memorable or significant event that occurred to members of your community?
Significant event. I know back in Hong Kong there was a umbrella revolution sort of things. It's like calling for democracy and stuff like that, because after Britain turned back Hong Kong to China, so there's like a really cultural differences exist right away when they start to emerge back to China, and then like people not used to that system being oppressed by the Chinese government, and I feel like those type of movements like really important, because like in my sort of like culture they don't really have like what's that called, like power in a sense to control themselves, because like scarce resources, and we as a city it's like really small. It's like we're not sufficient enough to like support ourselves. So I think that movement is like really significant, like to my culture and stuff like that.
So what do you think this event means for members of your community? Do you think that umbrella movement was successful, and do you think that maybe it's a step forward towards democracy?
I feel like the older generation, it's like a really diverse opinion, because like some believe that why do you have to do many things, because like Hong Kong is not sufficient enough to support themselves, so why waste your effort and then just like wasting people's money, and like why are you doing that basically. And the other side of the world is like mostly consists of like younger generation, or just like my mom's generation, because we believe that we still want power for ourselves, because we never had that that power to control and maintain your own country and stuff like that. So it's like it's very diverse, because I feel like it's just like hard to maintain, because like there's so many sides, and I would say it's definitely not like I think it's not moving towards democracy in terms of that movement. I think it's just like getting worse, because the Chinese government is trying to like oppress us even more after seeing that just like movement, because they understand once you start one, you keep going, and it's just it's like they trying to limit people's creativity and stuff like that. So I feel like that movement is like really significant, because like it's just like many people start to immigrate out of Hong Kong, because they see a potential threat from that. So I think that situation is definitely like the most toughest or roughest situation my culture has like encountered, sort of.
Now, back in the late 90s, what do you think about the British handing back Hong Kong to China? Do you think Hong Kong and your community would have been better if it stayed under the British?
Well, I feel like the British don't really care of like what you're doing, because you're just like they're part of their colony, sort of like asset in a sense. But then like China's trying to take over your entire country, so I feel like there's a potential threat of that. So I definitely think, because during that era of like Britain colonizing Hong Kong, from my mother's perspective, I understand there's like a bunch of perks of them like trying to, like make Hong Kong more civilized and stuff like that. So like let's say building a railroad and like all those education system,
right?
Housing, all this stuff is founded by them, and then just like all of a sudden just like giving back to Hong Kong is like invading Hong Kong from China. It's like I feel like definitely like if we stay with Britain, I can see a potential growth because of their technologies and like knowledge. I think. And there's like, yeah, I just think it's better if we stay in Britain, sort of.
Do you think it was a mistake for Britain to hand over Hong Kong back to China, or do you think they should have asked the people of Hong Kong, like, what did they want to do? Did they want to become an independent country, or did they want to stay with, as a colony, or did they want to go back to China?
I feel like in that way, I don't think they have any choice but to hand back to China because in history, there has been like a sort of controversy whether you should give it back to them or just like keep it, but then Britain decided to give it back and then like let everything peaceful again, no more war and stuff like that. So I don't think, because I feel like if they let us decide and then we would choose like independent, right? So like it's like diverse opinion and then majority would choose independent, and then I feel like there would be arguments between China and like Hong Kong. It's sort of like create more problems in a sense if you just like ask people from Hong Kong instead of like just like giving back to China and stuff like that.
What's your take on President Xi Jinping trying to make Hong Kong more Chinese, is what they call it?
I feel like, I don't know, it's just like, it's really different from my culture, so I think it's really different. Generally, I don't want that to happen because Hong Kong, in a way, right now is really unique to me because we're like international city and whatnot, so I feel like there's so many culture behind us in this small, really city, by them trying to colonize, I would say that, like colonize Hong Kong. I feel like there's a diversity and just like it just creates more problems. It's like problematic to our culture, and I really don't want that to happen because all the language, like Cantonese would be disappear. All the culture, festival that we have, like let's say Christmas, will disappear as well, while people still enjoy those festivals and stuff like that, still understand the meaning behind it. I feel like it's just like not right, sort of, but then we don't really have a voice on that since we're really small and can't be independent.
Now, in my understanding, the Hong Kong culture is really a blend of Chinese as well as the British culture, right? Are you proud of this new unique blend of culture, or do you wish that the Cantonese culture could have stayed what they call pure?
I would say keep the Cantonese culture pure. Like I might be really biased because my mom's from Hong Kong, obviously, so like she has a lot of like influence on my perception. But then I feel like it's just Cantonese as a language and the culture has been here for so long. There is like a bond that like can't separate from Hong Kong. If you just like took it away, it's like it just makes it really different, It's just like no matter what you try to do, it's still like obviously the next generation will still like don't understand that because they never experienced that culture beforehand when they get education and stuff like that. But then I definitely think it's like just keep it pure would be better for the culture.
What do you think the mainland Chinese think of you, your ethnicity, your culture, and Hong Kong's in general? Do you think it's a positive or a negative?
I definitely think it's negative. So I actually read a lot of like articles because like I'm really curious because like that's like where my parents from and like my ancestors and stuff like that. So like I feel like negatively because they feel like, oh, China is such a great country, why would you abandon them, why would you try to like go back to your adopted mom, sort of like Britain, in a sense, created. So it's like I feel like there's some negative connotation on Hong Kong people because they feel like as a whole you should appreciate what you have and stuff like that. So like, but yeah, I just feel like it's just really different compared to cultures and stuff like that.
Okay. Now, in turn, what do you think your community and Hong Kong think about mainland Chinese or China in general?
I feel like there's a lot of like incidents where like we think they're really like not clean or like not civilized in a sense, because obviously like cultural differences again, because cultural differences actually play a major role in this sort of like difference in this sort of like action, because they don't understand like, oh, because Hong Kong we train not to do that stuff, like we train to be really polite, we train to be throw the trash in there, not to pee in public and stuff like that. I feel like there's like also negative coordination, so I feel like it's just a loop, whereas like Chinese people don't like Hong Kong people don't like Chinese people. It's just like because of that cultural differences, like again I feel like it's just like affecting people's lives and stuff like that.
What do you think it's gonna take for mainland Chinese and Hong Kongese to get along?
I feel like if they use oppression, then definitely like that's the end. Like once the Chinese like sort of like use tank or whatever army stuff like that, just destroy all the population, and just like them moving in there is like, I feel like that's the ultimate form of them like trying to get along. But like I feel like in terms of like culture, I don't see any like potential of them getting along, sort of. Yeah.
Now, with what's going on in China and Hong Kong right now, do you think as long as China tries to oppress Hong Kong or make them more Chinese, do you think your two people will never get along?
I feel like
or do you think Hong Kongese and Chinese still try anyway?
I feel like they still try to, but then like, because we have had those privileges in terms of like creativity, right? So we used to have those, website, like we can create all those memes in a sense, and now they're trying to limit us. I feel like if the Chinese government don't just ignore what we're doing, or just like give us like freedom in a sense, not try to like try and invade us, our culture, like what we've been doing and stuff like that, then I feel like there's still a chance of them getting along. But then right now it's like I don't see any letting go sort of like that freedom in a sense. I feel like once they have established that freedom or like that agreement between the two, then we still have a chance of like getting along, sort of.
With the current political environment right now, would you say that the Hong Kongese understand like Taiwan or Macau or Singapore more compared to China?
Definitely. I feel like because all of them are really small city in a sense, but then, obviously Taiwan's like a country now, but then like all of us like experience all the aggression from like the Chinese government, so I feel like all of them will unite, sort of like understanding each other's situation and acknowledge what is going on around them.
To you, now, in my understanding, Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, and Macau have developed their own unique cultures and identity separate from mainland China. What do you think will be the lasting repercussions or effects because of this?
In terms of like everyone trying to get their own identity?
Yeah, to be separate from the Chinese government because of their oppression.
Yeah, and like communists and stuff like that. I feel like ultimately we don't have a chance of defeating, because like obviously their population is really large in a sense. So like, and there's like an agreement between Hong Kong and China. It's like 50 years and you have to return back to China. So it's like that year is like coming really soon. So I don't think there's any possibilities of like people going back. So it's like sort of like oppression, and like you can't really do anything about that.
Can you describe in as much detail as you feel comfortable one memorable or significant event in your own life?
One significant.
Something that stands out to you that you won't forget no matter what. It could be a good or it could be a bad thing.
I believe like when my dad passed away, that's a really significant event of my life because I understand like time is really limited, and like I didn't know because I was pretty young back then, so I didn't know people can leave all of a sudden, and that grief of like not seeing someone ever again like definitely like makes me grow as an individual. So I started to, before I would say my relationship with my parents or like relatives are really bad because like I feel like they're kind of annoying in a sense sometimes.
Okay.
But then like once my dad passed away, I understand, oh, like we actually don't have much time, so I have to cherish every single moment with my family, my significant people, just like friends and stuff like that. So I definitely think it helps me to learn more about myself in a sense, and it helps me to regain confidence and like pretty much like cherish every single moment with people that I hang out with.
In your opinion, how different do you think you would be today if your father was still alive?
I feel like I would be really, I'd say in a sense really selfish or like cocky sort of. So like I wouldn't be as polite as right now, and I wouldn't think that like, because obviously before that I never experienced those sort of like family stuff like that, so I feel like, oh, it's inevitable that like you get those like benefits or like from your parents and love from your parents, but like in the sense that once he passed away, I understand if he hasn't passed away, I feel like I would still be that selfish individual that like take advantage of people and stuff like that, not understanding what life actually means to you and stuff like that.
What emotions you think comes up when this event is discussed?
Like what emotion?
Yeah, what emotions, like when it's discussed between you and your family, do you think is it anger, happiness, sadness? I
feel like there's like a forward process of like grief, right? It's like start cry sort of, and then there's like forgetting, and then like regret. I feel like most of it is like regretting, because when my father was in hospital, like I feel like as a son I didn't do my best, or like my responsibility to like take him to hospital every single time. Like I feel like that sort of like regret sort of like implements into my mind that I didn't do a really great job in terms of giving my time back to my father and just like talk to him, like not letting him by himself sometimes. Like I feel like it's mostly regret because I feel like I'm not incapable of doing that. So it's like, so it's like mostly regret, I'd say, in my opinion.
Now, how long ago did your father die?
7 years, I think. Yeah.
Would you say your emotions or your family's emotions are still as strong as today compared to back then?
Probably not, like, because our mentality is like things happen, we have to move on. That's why we try to like. That's why we have so much mentality of that, like things like you can't just forget. You can't just like live in the past, because it just like becomes obstacles for you when you try to move forward to the future. So we tend to have that mentality as in like, oh, he passed away, then we have to move on, in terms of, we still have to stay in that moment and not let go. So I feel like if I don't let go, like there's definitely like affecting my life as an individual.
What do you think might be the lasting effect of your father's death?
The loss. Probably teaching me how to be grateful for what I have. Like even though like I still miss him, obviously, but then like not as much as I did like when he passed away. The first thing he passed away is like I was really like regretting what I didn't do, and I started to be angry and all stuff like that. But now it's like I understand like I really have to like cherish every moment that I have and just appreciate everyone and stuff like that.
Has there been anything negative that has happened because of your father dying?
I would say my grade sort of, like my grade sort of, like I just try to maintain a 4.0, but then like because my dad passed away, I started to lose focus sometimes. Like when my teacher is teaching something, I wasn't like listening, wasn't paying attention, and when my teacher asked me to do some stuff, I was like, oh, what's happening because like of that. So I would say my grade academically affected, but like not really mentally because I tried, because like my family really has that mentality that like we have to let go. So it's like it's really easy for me, and I have a bunch of friends I can talk to, and I love exercising, so I just exercise and just like forget all the pain and stuff like that. So it's like it's relatively simple for me in a sense compared to others. And then, but yeah, I just think it's like really beneficial for me. Not saying that him passing away is really great, but saying that it makes me gain more knowledge in life, sort of.
So as a result of your father's death, your grades suffered a little bit. Now, did anything bad happen to, like say, among the adults, like his siblings, among your older relatives, were there in fighting, or did it just bring them closer?
I feel like in my dad's side, because we're not as like close enough as in like my mom's side, because my mom's side has a bunch of people we can just talk around and stuff like that. But in my dad's side, I feel like once my grandparents passed away and then my dad passed away, I feel like there is sort of like a disconnection in a sense, because my father is like the oldest member of the family. So it's like when he said something, everyone like would sort of like listen to him, sort of like he was just like, oh, let's have a dinner, then everyone would just go because he's the center of the universe, or like of the family. And then once he passed away, I feel like we sort of like disconnected, but I try to like bring back the relationship because like I understand the importance of like family. So we still try to do that, and we still trying to figure things out and stuff like that.
From all the experiences in your life, both good and bad, what do you think is something that you could teach your children in the future?
Definitely don't think what your parents did is like annoying. Think of it as a way that like in a sense, like because when I was like young, like I don't understand what they're doing, why are they forcing me to do a bunch of stuff, like why are they make me do housework and like all stuff like that. But now like I've been to like an adult thing, so it's like getting off work, having to do all this stuff is pretty tiring, and like they just want you to understand like the importance of like doing housework. I say like it's more like being individually, like living without any like reliance on anyone. So I feel like that's like I really want to bring a lesson to my children that no matter what you do, we still appreciate you, but you sometimes have to respect your parents' perspective, because what they have been through and what they want you trying to be, or like not struggle in the sense like in the future. So like what they want you to do is like prepare you in the future, I would say.
Now, when let's say when you have a son in the future and you see a repeat of what you and your father went through in your relationship, would you rectify that right away?
Definitely. I feel like because my dad, I don't like appreciate what my dad did before, because like he never really have a real conversation with me, so I don't understand what his thinking was, because he always yells, but then like I understand that afterwards, because you know he's working all the time, and like come back I was like messy children, like I don't like keep my stuff together, and so it's like in a sense I feel like I need to address the problem to my son, so that he would be aware of his action and the consequence that can potentially be brought because of his action. So I definitely think like having a conversation, addressing the problem, will solve it in the future.
Okay. Now, before we finish, for those listening to this recording, is there anything that you want to share or you want to say?
Just want to say thank you for having me here. So yeah, it's just like it just brings my feeling back again. So it's like understand my culture in a bit and like my life sort of. So yeah.
Okay, and thank you for sitting down with me.